John Kiriakou, this has been a long time in the making talking about having you in here. I'm glad to finally get you here, and I think it'll be the first of many we do.
The pleasure's all mine. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. We'll have fun.
Well, I actually remember, so when Danny Jones first had you on the podcast, that was like the first major podcast I think you had done.
It was.
Right?
Yeah.
In this new era?
2022.
Yes, I remember because he was up in Jersey with me at my parents' house at my old studio in May 2022, and he was finishing the edit of the episode, and he kept uploading it, and it was automatically getting demonetized. So we were like, holy shit, the CIA's coming after Danny.
Oh.
And then we figured out, let's put it in 3 parts, and then it worked out, and the rest is history. And
wow.
now
I did not know that.
Yeah. That was the real story. Swear to God. But in all seriousness, I think you've done 3 with Danny, as well as a 4th that was with Andrew Bustamante, or Danny and my mutual friend who's been on our podcast a bunch. That podcast was excellent.
We had a really good time. And, beforehand, I just sort of wing these podcasts. I don't really prepare for them because I figure after all these years, if I'm not an expert by now, I'm not ever going to be an expert. So I know what I want to say. I know how to say it. I don't prepare. I started thinking a couple days in advance, should I prepare for this Andy Bustamante thing? And I thought, nah, it's good. I'm not going to prepare. And it went very well. I thoroughly enjoyed that debate.
Yeah, he was here the day before, and we had known that was going to be coming or whatever because Danny's been trying to make that happen forever. But we were talking about you because obviously he hadn't met you before. And I told him, I said, you know what? I think you guys are going to end up agreeing on a lot more than you think.
And did.
When you listen to that podcast, there's like 80% of it, you guys are lockstep on I felt like Danny did a really good job of keeping it on like high level, broad, strategic kind of issues.
He did. Yeah.
And that last 20%, obviously you guys have some huge disagreements, which is, I think, motivated by your very separate experices.
I think that's exactly CIA, right. Yes.
But would highly recommend. We'll put that podcast actually link in the description because it was so good.
And in fact, I said to Danny before he even turned the camera on that I was a little bit worried that we might end up agreeing on too much and it wouldn't be interesting.
No, it was definitely interesting because when guys like you and Andy, even coming at it from some different perspectives, when you have been out in the world, in the field doing things, and I say the same thing about all my special ops guys that I've had in here and guys like that, it's not to say you're right about everything and I should just agree with what you say. No. Certainly not. But there is a level of respect from, GDCs, like goddamn civilians in my seat, where it's like, all right, these guys have seen these things. So I have to understand that like they have a greater view on how shit really works in the world, and it's very easy for me to sit here in my armchair and say you should have done this or done that, but it's not. The world is very, very gray.
Oh, it is very gray. And, I've met a lot of these special ops guys, whether it's, SEAL team members or Delta or whomever, and you can tell who the real deal guys are. Oh, yeah. And you can tell who the phonies are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've told this story before. I was in the green room at Fox News. I used to go on the Tucker Carlson show a lot. Tucker's a good guy.
Yeah.
And I was in the green room, and there was a guy in there who I didn't recognize. And he said, whose show you going on? Because they do Fox and Fox Business at the same studio.
Okay.
So I said, I'm going to go on Tucker. And he said, oh, yeah, me too. You must be going on before I do. And I said, he said, who do you work for? And I said, I'm on because I used to work for the CIA.
It's a long story.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know who this guy is, so I'm not going to explain the whole background, and nor would he care.
Right.
So I said, how about you? He said, oh, yeah, I'm CIA too. And I said, there's this immediate thing when one CIA person meets another one. And you always ask the first question, who do you work for? Right? I said, what division are you? Or what directorate are you in? Operations, it's operations, intelligence, science, technology, and administration. And he said, I'm in ops. I said, oh, yeah, me too. What division were you in? And that's the real question right there, because you can't fake that. And he says, and listen, the answers are, I was in counterterrorism, I was in Near East, I was in, Russia, Eurasia, whatever. He goes, I was in, wet work, black ops, special activities.
They don't say that.
No,
right?
Nobody ever said. That's from straight out of a bad movie. So I just said, oh, that's cool. And then I went in and did Tucker. And we went to a commercial and I said, Tucker, I think the guy in the green room who's coming on the show, I think he's faking it. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, he doesn't know any of the lingo that a CIA person should know. He's faking it. And he's like, oh, shit. He goes, I say something to the producer. Oh, I kind of forgot about it. And then a couple of months later, here's this guy in the Washington Post. He's arrested and charged with mortgage fraud because he went to the bank and said, I need a mortgage, but I can't tell you where I work. It's a special ops, wet work, black ops, secret CIA. And they're like, oh, here's a mortgage. And then he couldn't pay it.
Matt Cox would say that's bad fraud. That's sloppy fraud.
Yeah,
right there.
sloppy. That's sloppy. At least back it up.
That's unbelievable that someone like that would end up on a mainstream platform, though, like no vetting. And like I worry about that here because I'm an independent guy. What you see
so how
right
much
here,
research are you going to be able to do?
Exactly. This is what you get. But I will say with the spec ops guys I've had in, and then we've had in you now, and then your story is very well documented, and Bustamante and like Jim Lawler as far as CIA go.
Jim's great.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I really checked those out as much as I could ahead of time. But I remember even thinking the first time with Bustamante before I knew him, because he had at the time he'd only been on Danny's podcast. And so Danny had done some unbelievable podcasts with him that did like really high views.
Big numbers.
But Danny wasn't a clips guy. So Andy, for some reason, like wasn't viral yet. I was the clips guy. So like there was like kind of like we both then ended up kind of sending him all over the place after that. But I remember looking into it because I'm like, what, I'm a backwards hat dude in my parents' house right now. How the fuck can I figure this out? But to me, there's no excuse if you are like
Fox
$1 billion
News.
Company.
Exactly. Bro. Listen, Tucker had 6 producers on his show. You mean to tell me not one single one of those producers could do a little bit of vetting?
Yeah.
Wow.
It doesn't, now that I've seen it from the other side, though, it doesn't surprise me a ton. Like, at the time, it's like, of course, you just think these people have it figured out, but it's a weird world because you guys do still come from a place where
secrecy is the norm,
right? And some people are off record. I had one guy in here where he had some stuff off record, and if other guys hadn't vouched for him publicly, who were known, people wouldn't have believed it.
Sure.
What's always strange to me, though, and maybe you would know about this, is when there are people like that guy you talked about in the room who are saying, I was CIA or something. Isn't there some sort of law where like the CIA or someone representing them comes out and denies them?
There had been a law. It was the Stolen Valor Act. And it passed about, 12, 13, 14 years ago. And then the Supreme Court found it to be unconstitutional. It's not illegal to lie about yourself, right? Unless for the purpose is to defraud somebody. And in that case, we already have fraud laws on the books. And so if you go around saying, I won the Purple Heart and the Bronze Star. No, you didn't. Well, shame on you, but it's not a crime anymore.
That's great. So they don't have an incentive to come out and stop it. They're just like, all right, whatever.
No, not at all. When I was at Deloitte and Touche, I went to the consulting firm Deloitte and Touche after I left the CIA. And so every time a CIA person applied to the company, and there were 40,000 employees at that company back then, they would ask me to take this person out to dinner and just try to feel them out and vet them. So I remember this one guy coming, young guy, very, very aggressive, in a good way. And I took him to dinner in D.C. and I said, so were you DI or DO, Directorate of Intelligence or Directorate of Operations? And he goes, I did all that shit. Like that.
All right, Vinny, sit down.
Yeah. It's like, wow, buddy, wrong answer. Wrong answer. And I don't think I even stayed for the whole dinner. I think I told him I had to go, and I called the partner on the way home and said, this isn't going to work.
You should have had one of your mobsters come in and say, I think you're meeting with the wrong guy.
To say, you believe this guy?
We'll get to that later for people that don't understand. That's cool, though, that they had you, like, obviously you were very high up in the CIA. We'll get to that with your story. But so Deloitte, as a part of your job, they were also having you vet the guys coming in.
Can you check this guy out? Because he's telling us some really amazing stories, and we just don't know what to make of it.
Now, here's another question there. This is interesting because it gets into some of the, I guess, like civil liberties and constitutional type things that you now are an extreme scholar on as a part of your own story. But I got to be careful how I say this because I don't want to give up stuff I'm not supposed to give up. But I have one guy who was called in to consult on an issue for what I would call a major company. This is probably, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're on their way right now.
Yeah, sounds like it.
But anyway, so he's called by someone high up at this company that says, listen, we just had an unprecedented situation. A pretty high-placed employee in our company just walked into the CEO's office. He's been here a long time and revealed to the CEO that he is in the CIA and he has been put here to, monitor some of the international deals that are being made, because they were a multinational company. And, he now was given permission to reveal himself or whatever so that he could get more access to something like that, which part of the hold on a minute though here, this is going to get nuts. Part of the whole CIA thing is you can't spy on your own citizens. It's a part of the charter.
Oh, that's exactly right. Can't do that.
So I see you shaking your head there. That's exactly what my guy did when he heard this. He's like...
And there's a process for this kind of thing.
Yeah, he was like, no way, this is bullshit, whatever. Long story short, I don't know if the guy really fucked up the process of how he was supposed to do it, but it was legit. It's 100% legit. And my guy was actually called in to consult on trying to figure out how, they were going to make this work because they determined that and I don't know if this is true, but their best determination was that the intentions here were actually not bad. But again, they were looking at this we're not fucking constitutional scholars.
Was this an American company or foreign company in America?
American company.
Okay. I have a couple observations, if I may. Number one, there's a process for doing this. There are a lot of CIA people in American companies.
You don't say.
Yeah, imagine. But the process for it is you have to get the approval of the CEO and the director of security for a couple of reasons. First of all, are the obvious legalities, right? You can't spy on American citizens. And the idea isn't to spy so much as it is, as you said, to monitor the foreign activities of the company so that you can gather intelligence from foreign nationals and pass it back to CIA. Okay, right. Number one. So it has to be worked out with the CEO and the director of security. And usually the board of directors has approved this cooperation plan in advance, number one. Number two, if somebody is going to be planted in a company, unbeknownst to the leadership of the company, it almost always is an FBI agent, not a CIA officer.
Yes.
And that
I've heard
would scare the crap out of me because...
You love the FBI.
I know. We're so close, all of us. Oh, the stories I could tell you about the FBI.
We'll get there.
But the point of the FBI is to put you in prison. That's how they get promoted.
That's right.
Right? They're not there to be, have coffee and join in with the company's activities and help them make money. And number three, and my brain, it's starting to leak out of my brain. I can't remember what I was going to say. Oh, yeah. Number three is payroll becomes very, very complicated because you're forbidden by law from collecting two paychecks. So if you're collecting a paycheck from the CIA, let's say you're a GS-14 officer, you're collecting a paycheck. You're also collecting a paycheck from the company. You can't keep the money from the company to the point where there is a dedicated office at the Department of the Treasury that will do your taxes for you. Right? And whatever money you make from the company, you have to give back. That's the whole point of corporate cover. So that sounds like a heap of trouble.
Heap of trouble. And one of the questions while you were saying that I never asked that might be interesting here, because we have a real foggy area in the modern day intelligence community now with contractors. Right?
Oh my God.
We have guys who...
Post 9/11, forget it.
Right. So perhaps... this is someone who might have been contracted, who was a long time, maybe CIA guy, who now isn't CIA, but is totally still CIA.
That's entirely possible.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, a lot of the small and medium-sized defense contractors in the immediate post 9/11 era had exactly that issue, where literally every single one of their employees was a recently retired CIA officer.
Yep.
There's a company you know what, just to be on the safe side, I'm not going to say the name, but there was a company that was set up as an LLC in the late 1990s just for these newly retired senior intelligence service executives to go and use as a tax pass-through and hang out. And then they joined the golf course and they joined the country club. And then lo and behold, they started making money.
Oh, yeah.
And they ended up hiring 250 people. And they ended up selling to one of the big, Fortune 100. They made tens of millions of dollars each, and everybody lived happily ever after.
We sure they went ever after and didn't stay in the present moment with that little sale right there?
By now they're all old timers.
Okay.
I mean, in my mind, I'm still 30. I'm actually 60, so they've got to be, 80.
You're 60?
I'm 60.
God damn, John, you're getting up there, bro.
I know, right?
You look great, though.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You look like you lost a lot of weight, too.
Lost 115 pounds.
Holy shit.
Yeah. It's easy to get slow and fat and old, and you're comfortable just watching reruns on DVR, and you gotta nip that in the bud.
How'd you lose all that weight? You just start like working out every day, or?
I had a really bad case of diabetes, and so it's a kind of a long story. There's an experimental surgery that a Scottish physician stumbled on by accident. He had a patient with stomach cancer who also happened to be a diabetic with uncontrolled diabetes. And for whatever reason, my diabetes was uncontrolled. I was on literally the maximum dosage of every diabetes medication on the market, plus 4 shots of insulin a day. And the doctor told me, you're going to die. He told me I had 5 years. You're going to die if you don't turn this around.
Wow.
And I said, what do? I don't know what to do. And he said, well, there's this experimental surgery, and because it's experimental, insurance won't pay for it. It's going to be out of pocket. But anyway, the surgeon in Scotland found that if you physically remove a person's stomach for reasons that they don't understand, the pancreas starts to produce insulin again. So
you don't have a stomach?
No, sir. They took it out.
You have no stomach?
No.
Where does your food go?
They created a pouch that holds 4 ounces of food out of my intestine. It's up here at the top. So I can only eat what you can hold in the palm of your hand. I eat about 1,200 calories a day. I'm full all the time. Like this. You gave me a cup of coffee.
That's a black coffee.
And a water, and that's gonna do me until 8 or 9 o'clock tonight. And then I'll say,
but that has no calories.
I know, but it's gonna fill me. And then I'm gonna say at 9 o'clock, I haven't eaten since 7 this morning. I should probably eat something. But then as a result, the weight melted off me. I used to wear this Dexcom right here. You could see it in the Danny Jones podcast. The diabetes just went away like magic.
Oh, it's gone.
It's gone. I don't take any medicine.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. My high blood pressure went away, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, and even my sleep apnea went away.
No kidding.
Yeah. Completely turned my life around.
Whoa.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, but even can you eat like the feta cheese as a Greek and everything without getting full? I mean,
I took one of my sons to Greece in January.
Where are you people from in Greece?
Rhodes. All 4 of my grandparents came from Rhodes. It's glorious there.
My best friend all my life is Thessaloniki.
Oh, it's a beautiful, beautiful city.
Sagapo Eladmo.
Yeah, Sagapo. So I'm a dual citizen too, as are my kids, and I'm going back next week, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
Yeah, I love it there. But anyway, I couldn't really eat the food. The changes that you have to make are obvious, but even now, what am I? 2 years and 2 months post surgery, I can't eat beef. I can't eat lamb. It's too heavy, too dense.
But do you feel good?
I feel fantastic.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
I'll trade that all day.
I can run again. I haven't been able to run in years. Yeah.
You were running when you were catching Abu Zubaydah.
I could barely run to the bathroom a couple of years ago.
All right. Well, let's get into your actual story, because okay. I know you've told it on Danny Jones's podcast. You've been on Dalton Fisher's podcast as well. He's
another good guy.
Great guy. He's like right down the street here too. But you were not just any guy at the CIA. You, by the end, were a very high level guy. You obviously
quickly. Yeah.
Well, you made your way to the Directorate of Operations, National Clandestine Services, and did a lot before that. And actually, what's interesting to me is you know, I always ask different guys like how they got recruited because the CIA seems to have a lot of different modes to do this, and somehow they're able to find people who match a very specific psychological footprint.
Yes, indeed.
So was being a spy or working in, you know, some sort of clandestine type job something you had thought about as a kid that you wanted to do, or did you kind of fall into this?
Yes, I thought about it a lot as a kid. As a little kid. When I was 11 years old, I remember my mom and dad took my brother and sister and I to see our grandparents. They lived in a neighboring town. And when we got there, my grandfather said, "Did you see the news? They killed the CIA guy in Athens." That was Richard Welch, the CIA station chief. And I remember my grandfather and my dad talking about it like all afternoon that day. And I was fascinated by it. I went to college and I was close friends with a woman named Dimitra Santis. We went out one night, and when we came home, or we went back to her house, she had a message from her mom saying that her father's brother had been assassinated in Athens. He was the U.S. Defense Attaché.
Oh, wow.
So I used to think about this kind of thing a lot. Like, why are they killing all these intelligence people in Athens? And, you know, when I was a little kid, I wanted walkie-talkies and invisible ink pens and stuff. My parents always used to humor me with these little spy gadgets and stuff, little microphones and, you know, stuff that you get at the toy store for $10 and it's worthless, but it's fun. And then I sort of put it out of my head when I was in college. I got a bachelor's degree in Middle Eastern Studies. And then I was finishing a master's degree in legislative affairs with a focus on foreign policy analysis, thinking that I would either go into the Foreign Service at the State Department or maybe do something on Capitol Hill or lobbying or whatever. And then, do you want the whole story?
Please, yeah. That's why you're here.
Yeah, that's true. I had a professor in college who was one of the very few true geniuses that I've ever encountered.
What made him a genius to you?
He had a bachelor's degree from Harvard, a master's degree from Yale, a PhD in psychology from Yale, a PhD in political science from Yale, and an MD from Yale Medical School. Right?
He's smart.
The author of a dozen books, all on psychology and psychiatry. And he was teaching a class called The Psychology of Leadership. So this was my last semester of graduate school.
Maybe like 87, 88, something like that?
Yeah, this would have been, right. This would have been the spring of 88. That's right. And his name was Dr. Gerald Post. You know, I had seen him on TV a bunch of times. Every time there'd be on the History Channel, they would do these documentaries on Hitler's final days or the end of the Stalin era, stuff like that. And he would always give interviews on these documentaries. So he was teaching this class, The Psychology of Leadership. Absolutely fascinating class. It was, why do leaders take the actions that they do? And then what historical impact do these actions have? And you might just think right past it. But one of the examples that he used, and I'll never forget it, was the Yalta Conference that helped to define the post-World War II era. Why was that conference held in Yalta, of all places, in the Soviet Union? Can you venture a guess? You'll never guess.
I've never thought about that.
It was because a spy told Stalin that Roosevelt was sick. And so Stalin insisted that the talks be held in Yalta. And Roosevelt had to fly all the way around the war. So he went from the United States to Casablanca, to Cairo, to Tehran, to Yalta, all the way around Europe. By the time he got to Yalta, he was exhausted.
Yeah.
He was also near death.
Yes.
And Stalin insisted that they begin negotiating as soon as the plane landed. And just so he could get to sleep, Roosevelt gave up Poland.
Whoa.
So there's a lot behind these decisions. Yeah. There's a lot behind these decisions. Fascinating class.
Yeah.
So he assigned us a paper. We had to shadow our bosses for a week and then write a psychological profile of our bosses. I was working at the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. At the time, it was the biggest union within the AFL-CIO. And I worked for a guy who I feared a little bit. He was this mean, big, old school union organizer. He had participated in a strike at a previous job. He was with the women's, what was it? The fabric, whatever the women's, clothing union was, whatever. And some scabs had beaten him up and they broke his back. He wore this awful brace that went from his neck to his waist just to hold his spine together. He was just a mean, tough, old-time guy.
Yeah.
And on Wednesday of that week, we got into an argument and I called him a racist, which he was. He was a racist.
Ooh. He
got so mad, he balled up his fists and he took a stand. And I remember thinking to myself, damn it, I went too far this time. And I put up my hands to block the punch. I knew the punch was coming. And he goes, my penis is bigger than yours. And I said, what? He did. And he goes, my penis is bigger than yours.
You're like, present it.
I said, you know what? I said, you're nuts. You're nuts. And I quit. And I walked out. I went back to my apartment. I typed my paper. And I said he was a sociopath with psychopathic and possibly violent tendencies. And then I had footnotes from all these, psych journals and whatever. So I hand in the paper. A week later, I get the paper back. I got an A. And he wrote two things in the margin. Dr. Post did. He wrote, I didn't say in the paper I'd quit because it was irrelevant to the paper. But he said, I've never done this before, but I urge you to quit this job. I agree that he is a sociopath with psychopathic tendencies. Wow. And then he wrote underneath, please see me after class.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. So I went to see him. I said, Dr. Post, you wanted to see me. He says, come down to my office. It was in the same building. So I walk down to his office. He closes the door and he says, look, I'm not really a professor here. I'm a CIA officer undercover as a professor here. And I'm looking for people who might fit into the CIA's culture. And I think you would fit. Would you like to join the CIA?
Now, what's going through your head? You're in your professor.
Yes! Yes! That's what was going through my head.
This is interesting, though, that he would pick this paper was specifically what you wrote about to choose you. Because when I've had guys in the past, like Bustamante, like Jim Lawler. Mm-hmm. I'm actually going to cite Jim Lawler on this one because he's the guy that talks about this a lot. He really digs into the psychological profiles that the CIA looks for.
Oh, it's deep.
Oh, yeah.
It's deep.
But one of the things he says is that he's like the CIA, especially for covert spies,
yes,
they want people who are dangerously straddling, you know what I'm going to say, dangerously straddling the line of being a sociopath, but they're not quite a sociopath.
We all straddle that line. I'm glad you raised that. Yeah. And I want to respond to that and then go back to give you a little bit more detail. After I left the CIA, I met a guy at the CIA who became a dear friend. And talk about a consummate overachiever. He's a CIA psychiatrist. So he has an MD and a PhD in psychology. He happens to be a brigadier general in the Army as well, Army Reserve. Mm. And we go to the same church. We are in the same men's group, so we hang out. Greek guy. So he told me that the CIA actively seeks to hire people who have sociopathic tendencies, not sociopaths.
That's right.
Because sociopaths have no conscience.
Yep.
They're impossible to control, and they blow right through the polygraph because they don't ever feel guilt.
Right.
So if you have a sociopathic tendency as part of your personality, you do feel guilt, but you're still happy to break the law if you're instructed to do so. And I'll give you an example. When Dr. Post got me into the process, and I'll go back to the beginning of that process in a moment, I was in a group of 5 other applicants, and the interviewer there said, "Let's do an exercise." He says, "Let's say you're serving overseas as a CIA operations officer, And you get a cable from headquarters saying that they need next year's economic figures for Indonesia. So you begin to develop the Indonesian economic secretary, okay, at the embassy in the country where you're serving. And this guy becomes your best friend, which is the goal.
Yeah.
So you're developing him, you're taking him to dinner, you're hanging out, your wives become friends, you go on vacation together. You're doing this for whatever, 6 months, 12 months, and you determine he's not recruitable. What do you do? Headquarters needs the information. So what do you do? And one guy raises his hand. He says, you double down. You just keep doing it. You go out with him more. You spend more money. Okay. What else would you do? This girl raises her hand and she says, maybe you get the wife involved. Maybe your wife can improve her relationship with his wife, and then you get the wife involved. And I'm looking around like, is nobody paying any attention here? I raised my hand. I said, you break into the embassy and you steal it.
Keep them.
He says, that's exactly what you do. That's exactly what you do. Well, that's a sociopathic tendency. Like, what are we wasting all this time for? You break in. Why do we have all these people who can defeat alarms and pick locks? What are they just going to sit at home doing nothing? You fly them out, you break into the embassy, you steal it, and everybody's happy.
Now, here's the question, though. You're thinking about that, even that hypothetical, because you're not there. It's a hypothetical.
Right.
But you are thinking about it in the context of being a CIA spy paid by the government literally to have carte blanche in some ways to do things like this for national security implications.
That's
and
right.
I say that because if you're like, of course, I'd go in there and steal it, and they're like sociopathic tendencies. My one thing about this is, if they were someone else not working for the CIA and they were painting this situation and it was just a regular, American job and it had nothing to do with national security, would you ever say something like that or even think something like that is okay?
I'm embarrassed to say that, yes, I would think that way. And I'll tell you, when I went to Deloitte.
God, you were perfect.
Oh, man.
Until the torture stuff, you were great.
When I went to Deloitte, we had this mandatory ethics class.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I mean, well, how old was I when I went to Deloitte? I was 40-something.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Early 40s.
Yeah, 40. I was 40. So they're like, let's say you've got this, this Japanese company, and you're on the brink of signing a big deal. It's a $50 million deal, but PricewaterhouseCoopers, they made a bid. It undercuts us by $4 million. And one of the Japanese says, hey, why don't we meet up at a strip club? What do you say? And I said, let me go to the bank and get $200 in singles. And they're like, what? No, that's exactly what you don't say.
But this is also after your career, though. Would you have said that before your career?
No, probably not.
See, there you go. See, then point being, like, you played in the Super Bowl your whole career.
Yeah.
And now, even though you're getting paid a lot, and it's Deloitte and Touche, big, huge company.
Big, yeah.
This is like a high school football game compared to that, but you're still in your mind thinking like it's a Super Bowl. So fuck it, let's go to the strip club, see some titties, and get some information.
Absolutely not. No. And then my boss comes up to me. He's like, hey, the ethics people called me. I said, oh, relax. I'm not taking anybody to a strip club. Jeez. But anyway, getting back to the application process.
Well, what happens when he tells you that and you're like, yes, like down in that classroom? Is there like a secret tunnel that goes under DC and they take you to Langley there?
Almost. Figuratively. So I'm sitting in his office, and do you know what a Rolodex is?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, well, I thought maybe you're too young to know what a Rolodex is.
Listen, I still use that phrase, my Rolodex.
My Rolodex. Yeah. So he had a Rolodex on his desk, and he's flipping through the Rolodex, and I remember seeing Oliver North home, and it had a number. And I was like, who is this guy? He's got
I don't know.
I mean, Oliver North had just been convicted, right, from Iran-Contra. Yeah. So he calls this guy Bob, and he says, Bob, it's Jerry. I've got a good one for you. And he says, okay, bye-bye. And he hangs up. And he says, I need for you to go to this address in Roslyn, which is right across the river in Arlington, Virginia, and go to this address and ask for Bob. I said, okay. So it's only one metro station. Took me a minute. So I get over there. totally nondescript building that doesn't exist anymore. It's been torn down. And I go up to the 6th floor, and there's a security guard up there. And I said, I'm here to see Bob, and he points at a door. So I go in, and I buzz the buzzer, and they buzz me in, but it's into a little vestibule that's like 6 by 6. And the second door has this big spin lock, like in a bank. But a woman opens the door. She just pokes her head out, and she says, "Are you here for Bob?" And I said, "Yes." So she lets me in. So I'm sitting there for a minute, and this enormous guy, he had to be 6'6", 6'7", 350, comes bounding out of the office. "Are you John?" "Yes." "I'm Bob. How the hell are you doing?" "Hey, great. Nice to meet you. Come on in here. Have a seat." So I sit down. He says, "Jerry says you're good. And if Jerry says you're good, then you're good with me. So here's what I want you to do." He says, "I want you to go to George Washington University Medical School Auditorium Saturday morning at 8. We're going to give you some tests, and then you'll hear from me." I said, "Okay."
And that was it.
I left. So I go to GW Medical School Auditorium Saturday morning at 8. There are like 300 people in there. And they gave us 3 tests. The first one was a map of the world, and it was completely blank. So you had to write the names of all the countries. But I said in my first book, I was a map nut from when I was a little kid.
Yeah, me too.
So that was just fun, you know? Just fill it all out. There are a couple in West Africa that always hang me up, like Guinea-Bissau and, Guinea-Conakry and stuff like that. But I pretty much did the whole world. And then there was a current events test. It was A, B, C, or D. And it was so simple as to be kind of embarrassing, right? And then the third one was thousands of questions. But you just had to write agree or disagree. There's a box. Agree, disagree. And it was stuff like, "I would like to conduct a symphony orchestra." Who cares? But there was one. It said, "I like boxing." And I, honest to God, don't really have an opinion on boxing. But
Even to this day?
Yeah. To this day, I would say, yes, I like boxing.
Okay.
MMA has made it more exciting.
I think you're right about that.
Yeah. But at the time, I was just nuts for Mike Tyson because he had just come out. He was young. He was a beast. Nobody could last more than a round or two. It was amazing. So I think I wrote agree. But then like 600 questions later, it says, "I like boxing." And I was like, ooh, what did I say the first time?
And you can't go back.
It's like, I think I said yes. And then another 1,000 questions later, it says, "I like boxing." So I don't know. So I was the first one to finish out of these 300 people. And the rector said, "You sure you're done?" And I said, yeah, I'm done. I finished everything. I called my wife to come get me. I get in the car. She goes, "How did it go?" I said, "I have no idea."
You were married?
I had just gotten married. I was 23.
Is this your first wife?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. So there's another one later. Got it.
Yeah. So I went home. I had no idea how I did. Like a week or two later, Bob calls me. He goes, "You blew the doors off those tests. It was amazing." I said, "Oh, great." He goes, "Here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to this address in Vienna, Virginia, and just knock on the door." I said, "That's it?" "Yeah." I said, "Okay." So I drive to Vienna, Virginia, this little squat 2-story building. You'd never know it was there. Nobody would pay any attention to it.
That's how they like it.
Yep. Park my car, knock on the door. This lady answers. "Are you John?" "Yes." "Come on in." So I go in. There's a table set up, and there are 3 people on one side of the table, and there's a chair for me on the other. So on the one side, it was a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and an anthropologist, which was odd.
Guys, if you're still watching this video and you haven't yet hit that subscribe button, please take 2 seconds and go hit it right now. Thank you.
You'd expect maybe a sociologist, but no, this was an anthropologist. So I sit there, and one of them says, "Describe your relationship with your mother." And I said, yeah, my mom and I are close. She was very nurturing and always encouraged me and, drove me around to Little League and whatever. "Was your father the disciplinarian in the family?" And I said, no. I said, my dad's a big, strong guy. but he's very gentle. And I think he probably would be afraid, to hurt us if he were to be the disciplinarian. It's just not in his nature. He's a sweet guy. Have you ever betrayed a friendship? And I remember how I responded. I said, "Ooh, I don't think so."
Ooh.
I said, let me think about it for a second. And they go, no, that's what we were looking for. I said, oh, okay. And then one of them says, go into the next room. We're going to take some hair, some blood, and some piss, and then you can go home. I said, okay. So I gave him some hair, some blood, and some piss. I got home again. My wife's like, how'd it go? I said, I have no idea.
Could you tell, did they say anything about not saying anything to your wife about who you were talking to, though?
They told me I could tell my wife, but not anybody outside of that.
Tell her that it was CIA.
Yeah, I couldn't tell anybody. Just in case.
But they let you tell her.
Yeah, they let me tell her. They give you some wiggle room with your spouse, but they also strongly encourage agency romances.
Yes,
strongly, which
like
leads to their
league and
its
everything.
Everything from an LGBTQ club to quilting to gospel singing. Yeah,
gospel singing.
Oh, listen, I was in the CIA softball league for like 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Where literally every team is just CIA people.
You dress up in like the black site uniforms?
Oh, it's crazy. Yeah, pretty much. Crazy.
So you're allowed to tell your wife about this, though, and that's like after you're done the questioning. After you're done the questioning right there, they're like, go home again?
Yeah, just go home. So Bob calls me. He's like, oh, my God, it was great. You blew the doors off. I said, okay. I said, honestly, Bob, and I still don't know who Bob was. I don't even know if his name really was Bob.
Probably not.
I think because he was Jerry Post's contact, he was the head of HR, like the actual head of HR.
Head of HR.
Yeah, for the CIA. But I don't know. Nobody ever told me. So he said, 2 more steps. He said, your next step is you're going to go to CIA headquarters, and there are 4 offices that are interested in interviewing you. And then if one or more decide they want to make an offer, then you go through the background investigation and the polygraph. And I said, okay. So it was Near East operations. They decided they were not interested in me, interestingly enough. There was what's called the, I forget what it is. It's like some 6-month program where you just get kind of a smattering of everything, and then they decide where to put you later. They weren't interested. But then I got an offer from the analytic branch that covers North Korea, which I knew literally nothing about, and a branch that Dr. Post created, that does only psychology for the Persian Gulf. And that was a natural fit for me. And then when I started, on my first day, they said, we're going to put you on Iraq.
Wait, did you go to the farm or anything before?
No.
No, they just...
I went to the farm later.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there 4 months before I went to the farm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they hire you, like you've just gone through these like 4 different days where Bob was telling you to go places.
And they did the investigation, they did the polygraph, which freaked me out because I had never had a polygraph exam before, right? And I
what kind of questions did they ask you?
It's the pre-hire and after your first 3 years are called full lifestyle polygraph. Everything else is called a counterintelligence polygraph. So they only care about unauthorized contact with a foreign intelligence officer. This was all about drinking, smoking, drugs, weird sex, crimes, that kind of thing.
Did you have anything, that you thought would be a potential resume breaker in your past? Nothing?
No.
So you didn't have a problem with the polygraphs?
No. Blew right through it. There was one question, and I was freaked out when she told me, the polygrapher told me, you're reacting to one question, it's tripping you up, and we're gonna have to ask it again. And I was like, oh my God, please don't let it be the gay question, because how am I gonna explain this to my friends? I blew right through the whole process, except now they think I'm gay. Right? So I said, well, what's the question? And she says, it's with your credit card usage. And I said, my credit card usage? I said, I only have but 2 credit cards.
Not like I'm poor.
Yeah. Right? I was only making 18 grand a year. Truth. So they asked me again about my credit cards, and I answered truthfully, and then I passed. And they're not supposed to tell you if you pass. So I said, how did I do? And she goes, we're not allowed to say one way or the other. And she winks at me. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I made it.
She probably got fired for that.
I made it. I still remember her. She was very attractive. Very attractive young black woman. She's about my age. So Bob called and he said, hey, congrats. Expect a letter from us. And I got the letter and it said, congratulations, you've been hired into the Directorate of Intelligence Office of Leadership Analysis.
And for the Persian Gulf.
For the Persian Gulf. They told me that day I'm going to be working Iraq. And I said, Iraq, okay.
This is like 88 still?
Yeah, this is January 6th of 90.
Oh, so this is right before Desert Storm. Shit's about to get popping out there.
Well, but nobody knew that. And so I said, Iraq, okay. And my boss says, don't be disappointed. These were his exact words. He said, learn the tradecraft, learn the writing style. And then after a year, you can transfer to something more interesting, like Romania. And I said, oh, okay.
Mm.
So.
Did you speak Arabic?
Not yet. So I start working Iraq, and I became Saddam Hussein's intelligence community biographer, right?
Whoa.
Yeah. But who ever heard of Saddam Hussein in January of 1990? So things started heating up, and then I still remember the date. On June 30th, we published a paper in which we said we believed Saddam Hussein was going to attack Kuwait. June 30th. So this was 4.5 weeks before the invasion of Kuwait. And the night before the invasion, man, I was excited. Like I was so energized that I'm gonna be able to make something of myself here. And the senior analyst came over to me and he said, I think you're not understanding the import of what's happening right now. And I said, yeah? He said, it's not unusual for the countries we cover to go to war. It's very unusual for the countries we cover to go to war with us. Mm. The next morning, August the 2nd, 1990, I'm in the shower. Back then, we had these radio showers. They were like plastic waterproof showers you put in, or radios that you put in the shower.
Oh, yeah, I've seen Goodfellas.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Jimmy! Jimmy! You son of a bitch! I just watched that yesterday on the plane. Yesterday. I've watched it 100 times. Goodfellas. Greatest movie ever made.
It's pretty fucking awesome.
Anyway, they announced the invasion of Kuwait. So I rush into the office. I got there about 7. And my boss says, don't take your jacket off. We're going to the White House. I had never been to the White House before. So we get in a car. We go to the White House. I'm nervous as all get out. But I am the leading expert on Saddam Hussein. Period.
So you had spent how many months studying him?
9 months.
9 months now.
So some Secret Service guy takes us into the Oval Office. And it's the president, the vice president, the national security advisor, the CIA director, my boss, and me. The president sits down. I'm on a couch, right? And I remember looking around, like trying to be as serious as I could be. And I'm looking around thinking, my buddies would not believe this in a million years if I told them. If I called them and said, you won't believe where I am right now. So the president sits down and he goes, well, now what do we do? And everybody turns and looks at me. And I was 25 years old. So it takes me a minute, but I said, well, here's what we should expect Saddam's next steps to be. So we start plotting out what the heck we're going to do. And we got up and left. And my boss says, you might want to pack for Saudi Arabia. So I didn't cover just Iraq. I also covered Kuwait. But Kuwait was so small that we didn't really pay much attention to it. Mm. But nobody in America knew as much about the Kuwaiti royal family as I did. And so
in 9 months, you got all this down.
If this is all you do for 10 hours a day and then 4 hours on Saturdays, I mean.
Would you mind me asking? I don't know what's classified here or what's not, but like, they obviously, you're a young guy, but they're like, hey, congrats, you're on Saddam or whatever early on, which then leads to all these other things. But, you know, this is pre-Google era, pre-whatever that. You guys are also the CIA. You have resources
all the
today.
Files are on paper.
So
we had these enormous, like, floor-to-ceiling rotating file cabinets.
So is that what you were doing? You were just going through files? The whole thing? Were you calling people in the field like
no,
CIA contacts?
We had these proto-computers called Delta Datas. The screens were like this big, and they were all green. But we would get cables constantly from the State Department, the CIA, the NSA, the Defense Department, and then thousands, tens of thousands of pieces of press. So it's called all-source traffic, all-source cable traffic.
Could you use keywords to
type
in?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you had to be cleared for the keyword. Like, I couldn't type in China. I'm not cleared for China at that point. That all changed later. But my job was Iraq and Kuwait. And if the cable had something to do with Iraq or Kuwait, I was going to see it. I couldn't see operational traffic. That also changed post 9/11. But I was already in operations by then, so it didn't matter to me.
How would you amalgamate all this? Was it literally like you see in the movies where, you know, you had a giant room and a board with a bunch of pictures and shit on it, and that's what you would do?
You know, I remember that day walking to the cafeteria. There was like a mini. We had our operations center up on the 7th floor. And that they've got TVs going from half the countries in the world, and everybody's sitting at these tables and typing, and calls are coming in from around the world, whatever. But there was a place also on the 1st floor by the cafeteria. And I didn't know really what it was. I think the Office of Security had it, and it had a map of the world. And there were lights, like pins, but they were lights in all the countries. And like, the whole 8-9 months that I was doing my job, like maybe it would be flashing in, you know, Nepal because somebody massacred one of the royal family members, opened fire on the rest of the royal family, killed every last one of them, right?
In Nepal?
Yeah, so that's why there's no royal family anymore.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Nepal is blinking. Or, you know, the Shining Path is doing something in Peru, so Peru's blinking. I remember going to lunch that day, and every country in the Middle East is blinking. It was like a police car. And I was like, oh my God, this is bad. So I ended up flying out to, the royal family escaped from the town of Ahmadi, which is the
Kuwait.
Yeah, Kuwait. It's in southern Kuwait. It's where the oil fields are. They escaped across the border into Dhahran. And from
Dhahran?
Yeah.
That's a country?
No, it's a city. In the Saudi eastern province.
Okay, I was going to say, like, that's a new one.
No, it's a city. It's where Aramco is.
Okay.
Yeah, and so from Dhahran, they went to Taif, which is just outside of Mecca. So I went to Taif and was kind of the liaison with the royal family.
Is this in August 1990? Okay. So in those months, though, where you were studying Saddam Hussein and becoming his preeminent biographer leading up to the meeting with the president in the Oval Office, let me preface this by saying this. I don't want to make any mistake out here. Saddam Hussein was obviously a very bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
He killed his own people.
Oh, my God. It was legendary.
I mean, his sons might have even been worse than he was. Like,
I would agree with that.
No doubt about that. And I'm sure you know way more than you've forgotten way more than I could ever know. That said, you know, we look at a lot of this hindsight 2020. Eventually we'll get to the later Iraq war. But to preface that right now, it's like, you know, we kind of went in there saying there were these WMDs that there weren't there. And when you look at the aftermath of what was caused as a result of us doing that, it is arguably at best and pretty much confirmed that at worst that it was actually better with Saddam in there.
There's no question about it.
Right. So
2 million people died because of this.
At the time, this is way back. Are you thinking to yourself, holding two thoughts at the same time, going, really bad guy, do we have to get involved with this, though?
No, and I'll tell you why. That's a good question. Really bad guy, we need to push him out of Kuwait, which was the original plan.
Right.
Nobody ever used the term nation building, right? That was the one dirty word nobody could utter because it was none of our business to start building nations.
And we're not good at it.
We're not good at it. I mean, post World War II, we can't point to a single success story, really. Like, really not a single one.
Well, kind of Germany and Japan.
Post World War II.
Post World War II.
Yeah. But
you're counting that as...
Yeah, I'm counting that because of the aftermath of World War II. Yeah, that's really our only success story.
Yes.
So, you know, and let me add something, too, about the cause of the war. It was clear in the early summer of 1990. Actually, let me ask you, do you mind pulling up a map of the Rumaila oil field, Rumailah, Rumaila oil field? So this is an oil field that's like 95% under Iraq and 5% under Kuwait.
Got it.
So
which one do you want, John?
Yeah, that first one looks like it'll
right
work.
There?
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go. Now you see the green, it sort of ends at the Kuwaiti border.
Yes.
It goes across the Kuwaiti border like a kilometer. And the Kuwaitis were slant drilling. They were drilling diagonally under Iraqi territory so they could steal the oil. And the Iraqis caught them.
Right. Not good.
So the Iraqis said, you're stealing the oil. We're going to send troops to the border. And the Kuwaitis are like, oh my God, they're starting to freak out. So the Pentagon asked the U.S. Defense Attaché in Baghdad, do us a favor, drive down to the border and tell us if there's anything we should be worried about. He drives down to the border and he says the entire Iraqi military is on its way south.
How big was their military?
Oh, it was about 200,000 people.
Oh.
It was big.
That'll do.
It was the fourth largest military in the Middle East, or third.
Wow.
It was big. It was big. Like Iran and Egypt were bigger, but it was big. So he's like, we need to take this deadly seriously. So the State Department, under Secretary of State James Baker, sent a cable to the U.S. ambassador to Iraq, April Glaspie. I loved April. She was career diplomat, just an awesome person. She lived with her mom in Baghdad. Her mom was old and needed, elder care. So she was living in Baghdad with her daughter. They were getting ready to go on vacation 4 days before the invasion. And so Baker sent a cable saying, before you go on vacation, go see Saddam Hussein. And she had only seen Saddam once. It was when she presented her credentials. So it was, Saddam didn't meet with anybody, really.
It's so strange, like thinking of it now, like Saddam meeting with like a U.S. official person.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
So April goes to see Saddam, and she told Saddam exactly what she was instructed to tell Saddam, right? Now, I remember the talking points cable that went out. And the point we wanted to convey was that the United States does not take a position on Arab border disputes. Right?
Oh, wow. That's not what I was expecting.
That was a critical mistake.
Okay.
The conventional wisdom was the Iraqis were so angry about the Rumaila oil field that they were going to take the Kuwaiti part of the field. So they were going to go into Kuwait. We thought maybe 5, maybe 10 kilometers, because the rest is just wasteland, and just secure the field. Nobody thought they're going to take the entire country, and then it's going to fall in 4 hours. Right? The whole country fell in 4 hours.
Saddam would never.
I know.
Come on now.
Well, we figured because the Iran-Iraq war had just finished, like 18 months earlier. Like, he really wants to start another war?
But Iran's such a formidable big country. Like, there's a lot there, whereas Kuwait,
that was the key.
Little...
That was the key. And in his mind, the American ambassador had just said, go ahead and take Kuwait. We're not going to interfere. Right?
I mean, thinking about it, though, like just looking at this as a third-party outsider observing, I mean, sending 200,000 people to the border seems excessive. Taking the entire country definitely seems excessive. But seeing as they did drill into his country, some sort of action actually does.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Thank you guys for checking out this clip. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. It is a huge, huge help. And if you'd like to check out this clip's full podcast episode, that link is in the description below or right here. And finally, you can follow me on Instagram and X by using the links in my description below.